I want to thank everybody for joining us today and to remind you that this meeting is also being recorded, so to let you know. I am so grateful that you're here, and I wanted to start the conversation with, we decided as the ICCB team, there was some confusion at the beginning of the year where we're trying to get our documentation and processes in order. There's been a lot of changeover in excuse me, in staff at the ICCB, at programs over the last few years, at how we manage files and documents. So I was trying to get a big picture idea of what's happening. And what I've discovered is that we needed to update our processes and our intake and our overall way we manage this information. So we've talked together with myself, Angela Gerberding, Jane Black, and Cecelia. And we've kind of come up with a process that we want to go over with you guys to see if this makes more sense to you, to help you understand what we need and why we need it, and to kind of discuss big picture of what's happening across the state. Again, as I've said many times before in this weekend, Thursday, Friday meeting, and I'll continue to say, we use the data that we do in our surveys with you. We actually use that information, and it helps guide us in our processes. So with that being said, next slide. Okay. To go over our requirements, every ICCB funded program is required to have an active bridge program in FY21. That is a part of the contract that we have for funding. So every program is supposed to have one. What I do realize is that many programs have bridge programs, but you're not tracking it in DAISI correctly, or we don't have record of that because it's changing in staff. So we're going to talk about that. And I will also tell you that it's an expectation that every ICCB funded program should have or be working towards the development of an ICAPS program. This is a part of WIOA. This is a part of federal law. We are required to have this, and I am required every year to report out what's happening, not only to OCTAE, but to the Illinois General Assembly. So we have to be able to tell them what we are doing that is in alignment with not only the WIOA law, but the expectations to build a talent pipeline so that we can fill the positions that are necessary to have Illinois recover from this economic cliff that we just went over. But always at the center of this, know that what's driving these policies and processes is what's best for the students. They are always at the primary part of our decision making, and they are also at the primary part of how we allocate our resources. So right now, this is what we have expectation for every adult education program. And I want to clarify that every adult education program, in order to count your bridge or your ICAP program, then the classes have to be funded at minimum of 51% from ICCB AEFL grant. So there's been some confusion in the past about using some of the other grants, running a bridge and transitions program, and why that doesn't count in the AEFL grant. It's because of different funding sources. So in order for it to count, we need to have 51% of that program coming out of the AEFL grant. So you'll talk as we work through this with Angela. We'll be leading some ideas on braided funding and ideas about how to make that workable. Next slide. And Jane, I'm going to let you go.
Okay, program versus course. I have, if you've been around for the past couple years, I have sent this like a little 8-slide PowerPoint that explained all of this, but this is the condensed version of it. Your Bridge, ICAPS, and IELC programs include specific and targeted courses, transition and support services, and that it leads to a credential. Now, there's a difference between a program and a course. That was a program. The course is just one instructional component within a program. And I think that was part of the confusion earlier on this year between a bridge course and a bridge program. Those were being used interchangeably when they're very different. A course is just a part of a program. For example, you could have a bridge program which is healthcare. And in that particular program, there might be any number of courses. And that chat just went right in front of the screen. There are any number of courses. You could have a math course, you could have a workplace literacy course, you could have a reading, language, and communications course. You could have any number of courses in a healthcare bridge program. The difference between classes. You can offer a particular course multiple times in a term. You know what I mean? It's still the same course. It's just offered at different times or maybe in different learning formats. One might be hybrid, one might be totally online, one might be live. I have, like I said, there is a complete PowerPoint I have that explains that, along with how to calculate units of instruction and whether or not some courses need modified there. I know for a while there tended to be confusion. People thought that anytime they wanted to offer a class, like different times, they thought they needed to go for a course modification. No, courses and classes are different. Courses are part of a program. Holler at me, send me an email if you have any questions on this. I've got just a complete PowerPoint that I can send to you for you to distribute to anybody you need to, along with how to calculate units of instruction. Any questions right now on this? And we move onward.
Next, okay.
All right, so in case you haven't met me yet, my name is Cecelia, and I am the new Associate Director of Adult Education and Literacy, specifically with data system support. So I'm the person that you should be coming to with any DAISI questions or concerns. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the bridge approval process. So when you're looking to have a new bridge program approved, we're going to be looking for three things. So one is a contextualized curriculum. So any content that you're teaching should be in the context of the career cluster that your bridge program is in. We're also looking for a career exploration component. We want to make sure that our students are being exposed to all different options that they have within the field that they're studying. And we're also looking for transition or support services that will help students with any barriers that might be get in the way of their finishing or succeeding in the program. So there are 4 steps to applying for a new bridge approval. So the first step is using the bridge program approval form that's on the Adult Ed website. Then once it's been approved by Jane, or by me actually, and your courses have been approved by Jane, then you'll input your bridge courses into DAISI. And then once your courses are in DAISI, you'll put your classes into DAISI. And then once you are entering any students into that bridge program, you'll want to make sure that you enter the career cluster and credentials of those bridge students. So in order to find the bridge approval form, visit the Adult Ed website. The link is right here. So it's iccb.org/adult_ed. And then click the resources tab right up here. And then the bridge program approval form is the second link under this additional resources heading. You can also take a quick screenshot of this link, and this will take you directly to the form. So once you've found the bridge approval form, it'll look something like this. It'll ask you for some really basic information like your program's name and your APC code. It'll ask you when the bridge program is expected to begin, and it'll also ask you to enter the course code and the course name of all courses associated with that program. You'll have to select the career cluster or career clusters that are associated with your bridge program. And then at the bottom, there is a box where you can just briefly explain your bridge program. It doesn't have to be like a 10-page essay, just basically a couple, maybe like a couple paragraphs about how your bridge program meets those criteria that I spoke about before. So contextualized curriculum, career exploration, and transition services. So I've just included a quick example of what that description might look like. So this is a bridge program proposal for a SERVSAFE bridge. This program has broken it into the 3 different criteria that we're looking for. And they've just really briefly just explained how their bridge program meets that criteria. And they also, so that's basically all we're looking for. And if for any reason your bridge program doesn't meet the criteria that we're looking for, we'll just send your proposal back to you, and you can make any edits that are necessary and send it back.
Cecelia, there was a question that said, is there a template that should be followed for the 3 components, or would a syllabus suffice? I mean, how detailed are you looking?
Thank you, Angela. I can't see the chat right now. So there's not necessarily a template that I'm looking for. Again, I'm just looking to see how you're meeting each of these 3 criteria that we're looking for. So if you want to do bullets, that's fine. If you'd rather write in prose, that's acceptable as well. Just any way that you can explain how your bridge program satisfies the 3 criteria that we're looking for.
And Cece, I think that question also lends to the same confusion that we've had. Why would you be turning in a syllabus for a program? Syllabi go with courses. So you would not be submitting a syllabus for a program of study. Syllabi belong with courses. The getting a program approved involves, like I said, submitting a narrative explaining how all 3 parts are going to be addressed: the transition, the contextualized curriculum, and the career development.
Great. Are there any other questions?
Not that I saw in the chat.
Great. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Angela, so you can talk about ICAPS.
Fabulous. So ICAPS, the approval process, what are we looking for? There's 3 components of an ICAPS or IETs. ICAPS and IET are essentially the same thing. IET is the federal level, integrated education and training. That's what's laid out at the federal level, but ICAPS is what Illinois calls an IET. So they are essentially the same. I'm going to point out the difference in just a second. The 3 components that are required is adult education curriculum. So whether that's ASE or whether that's ESL, it's adult ed. They have to have workplace preparation activities, and that is a lot of times where your employability skills come in, your resume building, your mock interviews, that sort of thing is in your workplace preparation. The 3rd required component is a workforce training activities. Those are more connected to an employer or an on-the-job, either a job shadow or an apprenticeship, a pre-apprenticeship, something along those lines. But it's the workforce training is more connected to an employer job specifically. Workforce preparation is more of the pre-step of the resume, the communication skills that are going to be needed, how do you deal with timesheets, those kinds of things that could be more cross-job connected. The 4th check mark there, the team teaching component, that is what is the difference between ICAPS and IET. In Illinois, a team teaching component is required, and that team teaching is CTE and adult education. That's for a Model 1, so at a community college. If you have a Model 2, it's still adult ed and some form of the CTE side. It's not going to be a CTE course per se, but it could be something in the in an industry credential that the students are going to earn instead of college credit. So you still have to have both sides, and you need a team teaching to work together to make sure that the CTE side is understanding the adult ed students and the adult ed students are understanding the CTE side, so that we can work back and forth that way. The steps that are needed to get an ICAPS approval done is you're going to download the rubric from the ICCB website. We put finishing touches on that rubric last night and this morning, so it's not up on the website yet, but as soon as it is, we will have it on both the adult ed website and the CTE, probably on the IET page, but we'll let you guys know where that's at and when that is ready to go. I'm going to show you a sample of that in just a second. That rubric is not for you all to fill out. That rubric is what I will fill out when I receive the proposal, but it gives you all of the exact steps and points of what exactly I'm looking for. You'll submit the proposal to me. I will compare the proposal to the rubric. I'll return the rubric with either questions or identified missing pieces. You're missing a partnership letter. You're missing labor market information. You're missing the workplace preparation activities. I'll identify what's missing. And then you'll be able to, there's on the rubric, you'll see that there's a column for you, the program, to then kind of answer my question about, well, these are the preparation activities that are going to happen in these places at these parts. Or if it's a partner letter that you just didn't attach, see attachment, I've included it now. So there's a rubric. This is kind of a rolling document that will go with it. And then after that's all done, you'll be able to identify the class appropriately in DAISI so we can count them. Because as has been said before, if it's not identified in DAISI, we don't know that it's actually being offered, that students are enrolled, and that credentials are being awarded. And then we can't count those at the end of the year. So if we can't count it, it didn't happen. We don't know it. We can't, we don't want to magically pull numbers out and go, well, we think there's 8 more programs. We don't want to think about how many, we want to be able to show in DAISI and support those numbers that we turn in to the governor and whoever else asks for them. Next slide, please.
I want to support what Angela said here. I just got off, I had to step away from the Transitions Academy for a meeting where we're putting together a report that goes to the governor's office. And that report indicates what all the partners, all the title agencies are doing. And unfortunately, when we get called on from adult ed, I have to use information coming out of DAISI, and I have to use data that I can back up and say I have an approval form, so I know that this program is doing X, Y, and Z. When I don't have that information, I am unable to report that to our governor. I'm unable to report that to our state and national partners. When we're being asked if our credentials is in line with what the labor market is indicating and what our stakeholders need, and the data in the system says that a student got a credential with no more information than credential, I can't answer those questions. And those questions are very important now, and I'm going to tell you they're more and more important every day as we look at having to identify the efficacy of our programs, and I have to identify what we're doing with the funding. So as we are going through this process, please understand it's twofold. We're trying to get a process in place so that we have the documentation that we need so we can make sure you as a program are getting recognized for the work that you're doing. I want to be able to share your successes with our funding entities. And if I don't know what's happening and we don't know from a state what's happening, we cannot then guide the technical assistance to support you. I can't connect program to program when I don't know who has a good Model 2 program because it's not being reported through our systems. Even though your work is being done and is being done very well and is very student-centered, without us knowing what that is, we can't support you. So as you're looking at all these steps we're working through, the goal is to get our processes in place so we can support you. And now I'm done, Angela.
Okay, that's fine. Cece, can you move to the next slide? Okay, I'm gonna let one of you others read chats and comment as needed. So this is what a rubric roughly looks like. So on the left, it's got all of the components. I'm pointing at my screen, but you can't see me pointing at my screen. Silly Zoom, can't see my fingers. The left side is all of the various components, the parts and pieces. At the top, it'll tell you if it must include all of them, it must include one of these, it must include 3 of these, whatever that is. I will go through, and because again, this is all electronic now, I'm going to be highlighting yeses or nos, and that's what those green colors at the top are identifying. If it's a yes, it's green, it's good. If it's a no, I'm going to highlight it in red. That's going to tell you there's an issue. Perhaps you've included like part of the curriculum, or you referenced, hey, we're going to use adult ed curriculum, but that's as far as it went. I might put an X in the middle and make it highlighted in yellow so you can see there's still more concerns there. But I would add a comment. You've referenced this, but I am not sure what curriculum you're using. I'm not sure how this fits in together. And then this 4th column is where you can see your program response is, we'll be using X curriculum. It's here, it's attached. Here's a sample of it, whatever it is. So this is the very beginning of what this rubric looks like, because we want to make sure that you have all of the components that you need, all of the parts that are supposed to be in there are included in there. There's additional parts and pieces, but that's also why you will be able to download this off the website soon. So you're not putting a proposal together blindly. You have this that you can look at and say, okay, do I have all these parts? Do I have all these pieces? Is this all included? If it is, then you submit it. If it's not, then you either add to it and then submit it, or submit it and I'll tell you that you're missing certain parts and I'll ask you to add those. So, Kathy, do you have anything to add to this?
Only that you can reach out to us before submitting and we will help you with this.
Yeah.
This is
yes.
A process that we are focused on working together and collaboratively with. So if you're in process of something and you want to schedule a time to talk to somebody to make sure that they're available, we'll sit down and we'll go through all of this with you on an individual basis. So our goal is to be supportive. You don't have to do this alone. And we're trying to put tools in your hands, and then we're going to be accessible to you as you need us.
Yep. I've had several programs that have sent me an email and said, hey, I'm working on this proposal, but I have some questions. Can we have a phone call? Sure. And we find a time and we have a chat. So totally doable. I would much rather you have all of this complete and done when you turn it in. It makes it easier for all of us to be done accurately the first time. So yes, please call, please ask. Cece, next slide, please. If you have questions about ICAPS, you can reach out to me at ICCB. There's my email. Or you can reach out to Bevan. She's at SIPDC. We both work with ICAPS. Bevan's worked directly with ICAPS a lot longer than I have. I won't tell any years because she might get mad at me for that. But she has done a lot of the implementation. She's very knowledgeable in it. She will also have phone conversations. She'll sit down with your program. Pre-COVID, I know she did lots of individual specific trainings for different programs that needed help with team teaching, or they need help with a different part of it. I can help with that. I can answer policy related questions. So there's those emails if you've got questions. I didn't include my phone number just because I'm still working from home. So my work number is not preferred. I would start with an email to me and we'll figure out a time to call and what number to use. So we'll go from there. And I believe that ends my part.
Okay, so I do want to talk about, there's been confusion. We have so many different options for funding. We have these small IET grants. We have these IBT, Innovative Bridge and Transition grants. You have the AEFL primary grant. And so there's a difference with how they're all funded. They're coming out of different pools of resources. So we work very hard to put resources in the hands of our programs. And each set of resources comes, as you know, with its own piece of information. So what I am suggesting here is I want you to understand the difference between the IET, the Innovative Bridge, Perkins 5, and all of that. Because if you use and you were funded for an Innovative Bridge and Transitions grant, that does not automatically fulfill the IET bridge requirement in your AEFL grant, because they're two separate funding sources. And often, if you get the Innovative Bridge and Transitions grant and you want to use that grant to support your ICAPS model, we'll still need to go through that approval process, but we can talk through that and make it modified because we've already approved the process in the grant, so we can probably do something a little bit easier. We'll work through that with you. While I'm saying that, I see Angela looking at me, but what I'm trying to get to is these pieces don't necessarily all fall into the same categories. Your IBT grants don't have all of the pieces that an IET ICAPS project will have. So we just need to work together. If you choose to use the IBT or the IET grants or any other funding source, if you choose to use that money and that resource towards the requirement for the bridge program and the requirement for the ICAPS, then we need to work with you and make sure that all the pieces for the AEFL grant that are required to be part of that are embedded in your program. And then we have to work with you to make sure that 51% of that money is going to that adult ed instruction. So we have to get all those pieces aligned, and then you can do that, okay? But just wanted to kind of pause for just a minute, and I want to see what question you have. I want to see what concerns you have on what we've said so far. You can unmute yourself and ask. I think you can unmute yourself. You can raise your hand. But before we move forward, we've given you a lot of different pieces of information, and I want to pause and I want to hear what your questions are and what your concerns are.
Michelle, I see you raising your hand and you unmuted yourself.
Yes, thank
Good
you.
job.
I couldn't find the raise your hand. I'm sorry. So we submitted for a bridge, and we got that approved, and we did get the a small grant for Innovative Bridge and Transitions, and I got the rubric from you, Angela. So I'm starting to work on that, but I just want to make sure then, because Kathy was speaking to funding and 51%. If you get the Innovative Bridge and Transition grant, can you use that as your IET?
If you have 51% of the classroom instruction paid for out of the AEFL grant, yes.
Okay.
That's where that braided funding has to come into play. What was the confusing part for us is I know there's more happening in the state than what I'm seeing in the data system. But you can't put a student in DAISI who's not funded by any adult ed funding, right?
Right.
So I'm not capturing what's happening. So you can use 51% of the AEFL funding for the classes. And then yes, it will meet that criteria. If you don't use your AEFL money for that, then no, it's going to be a separate project you have that is very student-centered, but it's not going to be able to count towards your AEFL requirement. So we want to make sure that we're doing this so that you can count all these things together and not reinventing the wheel and not having to double up the work.
Okay, I think we're going to need a little bit of technical assistance, but I'm almost positive we're on the right path. So.
Oh, well, that's what we're here for. That's why we're doing this, because we'll help you with every step of this, because our goal is not to make it harder. We're not going to say no. We're going to say, okay, here's what we need it to happen, and let's come together and figure this out. So it's not a question of us saying yes or no. It's a question of us saying, okay, here's what we need it to look like in order for it to fit all the pieces that the feds are telling us we have to do. Okay. So this is being driven by OCTAE and WIOA.
And one good thing, like I said, about the Bridge and Transitions grant, and now I'm referring to the time before COVID when we actually had generation and, you know, percentages can only be used for development and administration. The Bridge grant was great if you needed to do that heavy lifting of trying to develop a new bridge program or ICAPS program, or I mean, that was, you could put a lot of this unrestricted bridge and transition grant monies into that administrative development of it in anticipation that once you got it up and running with that bridge grant, then it would transition to the adult education grant and you would begin using it for your adult ed grant.
So something I want to make sure I also add into this is that, and I don't think Kathy said this earlier, what this particular slide is talking about is course approvals, is approval processes. Because we've had several people with an IBT or an IET grant that as they built it based off of grant funds, then they just assumed, okay, now it's approved because they received those dollars. You still have to go through in a proposal process, which is what we're trying to explain today. It's not just an automatic, oh, I received an IET grant last year so for manufacturing skills, so now my manufacturing skills is done. Not necessarily. The money was put there, so given to you so you could build it, you could increase it, you could work on your team teaching, you could put all these pieces together, but it's not an automatic approval at the end. So that's where I think this slide also comes into play, is there was some confusion also, who was receiving what money. That doesn't mean they're automatically done. You still need to do a proposal to get it approved, then they're done. And it goes back to then that funding that Jane and Kathy were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, an IBT approval is not an adult ed approval. It still has to go through the adult ed process if you're going to count it for adult ed purposes.
Okay, so again, that's a lot of information for you guys to take in. So please, please, please ask your questions so that we can help you. This is what this time is for. Go ahead, Michelle.
Is anybody having problems with testing given this remote environment to populate the bridges and the IETs? I mean, we have them in, but I don't have test scores. I'm just guessing they're going to do well. So.
Yes. The short answer.
I'm just going to give you
yes.
a big yes. And very quickly, I was at a conference, a virtual conference for state directors about 2 weeks ago, state leadership team about 2 weeks ago. And I was asking every other state, what are you doing for this virtual testing? How are you handling it? And none of us have it figured out yet. You're not alone. None of us have it figured out. So when everyone kept telling me I'm not alone, that did not make me feel better because, well, I want an answer, you know? So just to know that we're not alone doesn't give me the answer. So yes, everybody is struggling with the scalability of assessing students virtually and doing all of this virtual. We will be putting some resources into a virtual learning community with the ALRC and the Central Illinois Adult Education Service Center to share ideas among practitioners about how you're handling this, so you can kind of communicate with your peers. What you said, where you're kind of guessing if they're going to be a good student, I think there's more than that, because I'm presuming you're going to be doing some kind of informal assessment to try and get some kind of baseline idea of where that student is. So that's the best that we can ask for right now, is that you have some process in place that meets your program's needs. And we're going to just keep moving forward through this health crisis and doing the best that we can and trying to assess students as soon as we reasonably can. And that is very vague intentionally, because as soon as you reasonably can is going to be a little bit of time.
And that's what we're using is informal processes and educated guesses. And then also if they're working in the industry, that's like when I'm vetting, when I'm doing my recruiting, that is a huge indicator of motivation too. So yeah, but it's all informal.
It is. It is. I understand that, because right now, you know, as I'm talking to program administrators and talking to teachers across the state, what I'm hearing is they'll set up a virtual assessment plan. They'll have their 5 students and then 2 will show up, you know? So now you've got, you know, and if we currently have approximately 15,000 plus learners across the state of Illinois who are lacking an official placement test. So that is problematic. So we tried tackling it with different plans and strategies, and we keep coming back to the scalability of this. I had a phone call with the CASAS leadership, imploring them to allow us to extend and increase the 5 student capacity to 25. That was not something they were willing to consider, but you may see an allowable request of up to 12 students in the near future. 12 students at a time is still a very, very difficult issue. So, all right.
Looks like Tina Raymond's got a question. She's muted, so if she's going to ask, she's got to unmute herself. There you go.
I was waiting for the invitation. Hi, I thank you guys for clearing up the courses, classes, and programs, because what sometimes is confusing, particularly for me, is when we talk about DAISI and how things need to go into DAISI. And so when we say what things that needs to go in DAISI, we automatically, for me, I automatically think that courses and classes go into DAISI, along with attendance and all kind of other stuff. So not necessarily thinking about the Bridge as a program, but it is a program. But when we talk about DAISI, it's necessarily not a program. We're talking about a Bridge course or Bridge classes or whatever. But I know that's was basically a confusion for me, like, how to, what's expected, what do I need to, and what I found out for myself was that I was doing the things that needed to be approved for IET or ICAPS model and not necessarily for a Bridge program. So I was doing more work than necessary because I had the IBT grant. So this is, so what I'm trying to say is that this has been very helpful as far as clearing things up and how to basically look at stuff. But I wanted to ask Ms. Kathy, if you won't do it today, perhaps at a later time, because one of the things I've also mentioned to Mr. Ben Greer is that I do also need help with braiding the funding, because he's always saying, 51% of AEL dollars got to pay for that Bridge course, in order for it to count.
51%.
Right. What did I say?
No, she was just reaffirming what you're saying. She's just reaffirming that.
Right. Okay.
So,
yeah. So will you give some examples of how we can do that on today, or would you prefer that be another conversation offline at another time?
I'm going to do a quick, for those of you who would like help with a webinar talking about braided funding, can you go ahead and raise your hand? And then,
So that's if you go down to the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should have a reactions little button down next to the chat. If you have that, click on the reactions and you can either give a thumbs up or a clap.
I've already seen some people raising their hands physically. So what I will do is we will schedule a webinar specifically about braided funding and what that looks like and what we need to do. So what I am seeing is that people are needing some help with this particular idea, and we'd like to focus on that. It will probably happen after Thanksgiving, to be quite honest, if that works for everybody. If you need help before then, please go ahead and let us know, and we'll schedule an appointment with you. But we'll go ahead and get one scheduled after the Thanksgiving holiday so that we can get you guys ready for the new year. Okay?
And Tina, you did an excellent segue into the next part, which is how to put stuff into DAISI. Good job, Tina. Thanks. Oh, no, I lied. That's coming later, but it's coming.
Geez. Well, thank you. Not to gloss over, Jane. Hey, if you guys look in the chat, I did put in the chat, I put in that short PowerPoint. It's on courses, classes, and maximum units of instruction. So I had referenced that earlier. I did put that in the chat so you can download that. Also, I did put in just a separate course approval PowerPoint that I'm going to go over right now. And I just, like I said, I think that I also in the chat just put in like a remember, a reminder if you read through that. Courses, classes, programs are 3 different things. An ICAPS program has bridge programming embedded in it. Bridge programs are made up of bridge courses, and classes are the many different times and ways a course can be offered. So let's just talk about getting a course approved. And this is this is not specific to bridge courses. This is getting any adult ed course approved. All new courses, all course modifications, they must be approved by us prior to being offered. Now, those of you that are community colleges, your new course submissions and generally your course modifications all have to go through Curricunet. Like I said, the rest of you though, for CBOs and ROEs, the process is still the same. It's just that for CBOs and ROEs, the information that is being requested is submitted directly to me. If you're a community college, all of this information must be submitted via Curricunet. Every form you could possibly want is found in the provider manual, Appendix C. I don't think anybody is using old forms anymore, but I do. For adult ed courses, I must have the actual courses. When you put them through Curricunet, I want you to attach the forms that are found in the provider manual. When you're submitting a course or course modification or any such thing, use the forms and submit them directly to me if you're a CBO or ROE. Next slide. What is needed? I will want the appropriate form, be it a course mod, be it a new course, be it a course that is requesting permission to use adult ed funds for CTE classes. I will also need a syllabus. I know some of you are still remiss in providing a syllabi with your course, new course submission, but I need an actual bona fide syllabus. Make sure that when you're filling out the forms, that you fill out them in their entirety. I want a course name. I want a course code. I want a PCS code. I want a SIP. I want maximum units of instruction. I don't care if you are a college, everybody has to give me maximum units of instruction, because maximum units of instruction are entered into DAISI, and that is very key with student attendance. Sometimes I get questions, oh, the student attendance, it's not taking their attendance. Well, it's because the maximum that student has exceeded the maximum units of instruction. So that one PowerPoint I attached there to the chat, that includes how to calculate maximum units of instruction. So when you're filling out the forms and attaching them, make sure you do it in there in the entirety. Like I said, of course, there will be some things that aren't applicable to you, but maximum units of instruction is applicable to everybody. Next slide. Oh, go back. You went 2 slides, Cece. Okay. If the form asks for a description, be thorough. Like I said, especially if it's a new course submission, be thorough. If you're, once I said this before, if you are a CBO or ROE, all of this comes directly to me. Community colleges, it has to go through Curricunet. Those of you who do use Curricunet, I know that Curricunet has some different things that have to be attached just for that whole Curricunet process. I don't personally need them. Perhaps Tricia or whoever else does that aspect of the Curricunet process may need them, but I am personally looking for the adult ed forms as found in the provider manual. Next. Now, modification for delivery. There are some things and like I said, this is only applicable to the Curricunet users. there are some things that Curricunet doesn't do. If it is simply a modification that is changing the delivery method, Curricunet, that to Curricunet and that system, that's not really a modification. That is just something that we at ICCB must have. So if all you are doing, community colleges, if all you are doing is changing its delivery method, do not send that to Curricunet. Just send that directly to me, because if you try to send that through Curricunet, Curricunet is going to look at that and ask what you're doing, because they don't care. ICCB cares delivery method. Curricunet, they don't recognize that as a modification that they need to know about. Once again, email me if you have any questions at all. All right, now something else, next slide. All right, something else that I don't have a slide for, but I think you need to know about is when you're doing a new course right now. If you'll notice the provider manual, we updated the zip codes. PCS 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, that's the same. But if you've tried to submit a new course, the zip codes have been updated. Well, guess what? Curricunet hasn't updated yet. So some of you have, you've tried to follow the rules, you're using the new zip codes for Curricunet, and Curricunet is not recognizing them. They don't see them. Curricunet is confused. Unfortunately for the Curricunet submitters, you're going to have to use the actual old codes. So, just if that happens and you're trying to submit a new course or do course modifications or anything through Curricunet, you'd still need to use the old codes, because Curricunet, the database is still not updated. It is still out of date. But there are, keep in mind, like I said, for CBOs, ROEs, there are I've updated the zip codes in order to more accurately reflect the iPad's zip codes that are being used. So you'll use the new FY21 SIPs. Oh, don't forget, guys, mark your courses in DAISI as bridge courses. If I have approved a course as a bridge class, if you've got a new bridge program that has been approved, make sure your courses are actually marked in DAISI as bridge. And you mark them under courses. That's where that's where it is marked. When you're entering in a new course, or you've gotten a word or approval that a particular course is part of an approved bridge program, you go to courses and mark it as bridge in courses. And like Angela said, we're still working from home. If you have any questions, email me and I'll send you my cell and we can talk. But the best way to still get a hold of me is via email. What sort of questions do we have? I don't think there should be anything that came in, because most of you, I think, have gotten this presentation earlier. So most of you are kind of okay with it.
Okay, let's go to the DAISI information. Yay.
Hello again. So I'm just gonna really briefly overview, is there a distinction? I'll get to that question that just came into the chat in just a second. So in DAISI, there is a way to designate a course as a bridge course. So when you go to the course add edit details page, it's just the fifth field there. There's a radio button. All you have to do is switch it from no to yes, and then all classes that are associated with that course and all students that are associated with that class will be recognized as bridge classes and bridge students. I just got a question. Is there is there a distinction between marking as a bridge or ICAPS in DAISI after approval? Yes. So this button here only designates a class as or a course as a bridge course, and there's a different button that you use to designate something as an ICAPS course. And you'll notice when you're adding a course that there's only ICAPS as a designation. There's no IET, and that's just because some of the language in DAISI is a little bit outdated. So if you're running a course that's referred to as an IET or it's part of an IET program, just choose the ICAPS button because it'll be the same thing.
Cece, where is this ICAPS? I don't see where this ICAPS button is. I just see the way to mark it as a bridge course. Where would you be marking anything as ICAPS?
I apologize. I'm just remembering now. It's not in the courses. You mark ICAPS students. So on the student status page, there should be a button called ICAPS. And again, it's just yes or no. And you just change the button to yes.
So you're marking the actual student as an ICAPS student. You're not marking any course or class as an ICAPS class.
That is correct, yes.
You have a student that's in a bridge and you mark them as bridge, but then they move over the next semester to the ICAPS, then do you do that in the student? How do you do that if they're going from one program to another over 2 semesters?
That's a good question. So you don't actually have to label every student as a bridge student. We know that that would be really tedious, especially since you already have to do that for ICAPS. So as soon as the student exits that class or that bridge class, then they will no longer be identified as a bridge student. And then in order to identify them as an IET student, then you will just check that ICAPS button on their student status page.
We've got a good question that came in. They were wanting to know what the transition button, go back a page, what that transition button means.
That is a good question. So with to be fully candid, I'm pretty new to this position, and I've actually never received that question before. So thank you all for being extra.
So we have
My dog is not
You're fine.
happy about this
Totally fine.
question.
We have specific courses that are transitions focused. They're not part of a bridge well, they are part of a bridge program, but is that course a transitions course? And if that course is a transitions course, then that would be yes or no. And the transitions course is the course that's going to move that student. Suppose you have them going from bridge to ICAPS and you want to have some kind of support course in the middle of that, or you're going to have that as a part of your program, you're going to mark that one. Okay, so what this tells me is that we need to put out definitions for everybody on transitions, bridge, and ICAPS so that we know which one is which. That's kind of what I'm taking from this. And because we're slow on time, I will make a note that we will get that out to you guys shortly. Again,
Great,
I would
thanks,
say,
Kathy.
yeah. Any course, all courses need course approvals. Okay.
And in order to create a bridge class, you don't actually have to do anything specifically bridge related on the add class page. All you'll have to do is just select the course code that is the bridge course that you created on the previous slide. And then for all students enrolled in a bridge or an ICAPS or IET course, be sure to fill out their career pathway on the goals and achievements tab of their students page. So it's just these 3 fields right here. So you'll select their career pathway, their specific credential. And again, as Kathy was mentioning before, please try to be as specific as possible. Just putting credential doesn't help us, it doesn't help you. So if it's like a SERVSAFE certificate, then put SERVSAFE certificate. And then If the student is going to earn the credential sometime in the future, you can just go ahead and put that future date in the month year earned.
So real quick, one of our scope of work things for DAISI is that that's going to be a drop-down menu with things you can select. Because when we're trying to pull data, I'll tell you, we had several that were dental hygienists, and they were DENT, period, hygiene, D, hygienist, dental H. I mean, we had it in so many different variances. And when you're trying to pull data and start putting them together, it's really hard when everything's called the same credentials called something different. So we're going to make that theoretically this fiscal year, we're going to make that a drop-down menu, and we're going to be able to have you click, and that's going to self-populate so we can get better data. And then there will be an other, so you can fill out if yours isn't on the list. I mean, that's theoretically where we're going, right, Cece?
That is correct. And if you have any additional questions about DAISI 2.0 or just want a little bit of additional training, you're free to visit the iccb.org/DAISI site. It's up to date now, so it should have all of the information that you need there.
Okay, go ahead, Angie.
Okay, so I will take these. So resources for bridge development and scaling. These are notes that came, or these are resources that Bevan Gibson shared. There are bridge planning notes, bridge contextualized, I can never get those two words out together, bridge contextualized curriculum, and then bridge process and policy, a recorded webinar from previously is at that website, but it also gives information about mentors. There's ICAPS information on the Illinois ICAPS webpage, but I'm not sure where this bridge information lives. Kathy or Jane, do you know?
The contextualized curriculum that is on the ICCB Adult Ed website.
Okay.
If you are going to use this, it's an automatic approval for the curriculum because it's ICCB supported and developed. And the IT is coming out November 20th, and Bevan's team will be showcasing that one. And the YouTube channel is part of the ICAPS, but your notes you can download for this, you can actually just go to that YouTube video.
Yep. And then these are some resources where you can find ICAPS IET information for development for scaling, the ICAPS website, ICAPS toolkit, planning notes, template. There's a ton of information. So even back when I said you can contact me or Bevan, we're probably going to refer you to one of these multiple sites to get your hands on some immediate resources if you're a paper person. So, Cece, is that the end?
Yes, that is our last slide. Kathy, do you want to wrap us up really quick?
I was going to say, I think the next meeting starts at 2 o'clock, don't they?
Nope, 2:30. There's a 30-minute break. So
Okay.
we can undo this Zoom, restart new Zooms, and people get chances to check email,
Okay.
refill drinks.
Yeah. So I think, the goal for pulling this whole thing together was to give you the tools that you needed, because I know that in the beginning of the year, I had created some confusion when we were reaching out saying, help us understand what you're doing. But it was in a way to really kind of get our hands on what's happening across the state. I hear anecdotally the wonderful things that you guys are doing. I hear that every day. I just can't pull that data out and give it to our governor, our legislators, our WIOA partners, and OCTAE. So I really need that. And a part of this is to help you with the tools that we know are effective. The last thing I will say is, please reach out to us. There is absolutely zero expectation that you guys do this alone. That's why we are here. That's why Bevan is here. That's why we fund the SIPDC. There's an intent that you are not doing this alone. There are virtual communities coming together. You're going to hear about more of those this afternoon so that you can share with your peers not only the good things, because I know there are struggles in everything that we just laid out for you, that there are struggles, and some of you might be taking a deep breath going, okay, how do I get all of this done? Because I recognize the work that this is going to take, but we're here to help, and we're here to work together on some of this. So please don't feel like you're out there on your own. With that being said, if you've gotten the information you need, feel free to sign off and take your 30-minute break. If it is okay with Angela, I'm going to stick around for 10 minutes. I want to be able to sign this off and then get people back on for the 2:30. But if you guys have program-specific questions, I'll see what I can do to answer that. Okay? So if you've gotten your information, feel free to take a break. Otherwise, let me know what kind of questions you have. Go ahead,
Kirsten,
Michelle.
let me ask Kirsten, because it's really Kirsten's room. Are you good for another 10 minutes, Kirsten, or do you need to go start another room?
I think I'm okay.
Okay.
I promise no more than 10 minutes, I promise. 8 minutes. Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
There was on the slides a spot that said mentors. Where do we find a mentor or volunteer to be a mentor?
So that will be working with Bevan Gibson through the SIPDC. They're the ones coordinating that. So we will have you contact Bevan, and she will either help place you with mentors or help that process going, or use you as a mentor depending on what you prefer.
Okay, thank you.
That's going to be addressed tomorrow as well. So wait until maybe 1 o'clock tomorrow before you get a hold of Bevan, just
Okay.
so you don't jump the gun.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else raising their hand or unmuting. So we can go ahead and end this meeting. Please know you can reach out to us at any time, and we are here to help.